All right, so let's go a little bit more in depth on this. Dale Rogers, who's a professor of logistics and supply chain management at ASU, is here. Good to see you again.
Great to be with you.
Yeah, all right. So is there a sigh of relief that we should all be having right now in terms of these tariffs? Do you think they're going to ever take effect the way that he had them set up?
Well, some have already, and he said there's going to be a baseline at 10%. So
Right.
that is a bump up. But it's great that the Trump administration blinked today. That's a very good thing. And you could see by the market reaction, the markets were really happy. Because almost every CEO of a large public company has been calling the White House and saying, "What are you doing?"
So you think the administration blinked? You don't think it was a negotiation tactic?
I don't.
Really?
I don't. I think they blinked. But it allows them to maybe claim victory. If you remember the 2018 tariffs, China agreed to buy a bunch of stuff from the U.S. and then, of course, never followed through. And so the Trump administration could claim victory, and they calmed down with some of the Chinese stuff. And this is an opportunity to sort of stop.
So speaking of China,
but it's only 90 days.
Right. iPhones famously, assembled in China. So does this 125% tariff that is staying, that this one wasn't paused, correct? Does it mean that a $1,500 iPhone coming from China is going to all of a sudden cost $3,000 plus?
I don't think so.
You don't?
Because mostly what happens in China for an iPhone is the final assembly. It's kind of like how car plants are in the U.S. They're mostly assembly. The components come from somewhere else. I think the largest intellectual property, the biggest components, comes from Korea for an iPhone. So I would try to move the assembly to somewhere else, probably Vietnam. I don't think it's coming back to the U.S. Probably doesn't make sense to.
Okay, so the Trump administration is saying that some 70 plus countries have approached them saying, let's make some sort of a deal. What are those discussions like, you think? Let's say we're sitting in the Oval Office. How's that work? You said Vietnam is going to be impacted greatly. Why do you say that?
So the easiest thing to negotiate is, look, we'll zero out our tariffs on your stuff. The bigger deal that will be much more difficult will be things like getting rid of the VAT in Europe and some of the other countries that have a value-added tax.
How's that different from a tariff?
Well, it's on everything. So it's not a tariff.
So it's just a tax.
Yeah.
Which is also a tax.
Yeah, right. The biggest thing are non-tariff trade barriers, where you're using some phytosanitary thing or environmental or some rule. Years ago, Japan didn't want American popcorn, and they said you gotta, the kernels that don't pop have to be less than 2%. So American popcorn companies had to get X-ray machines to X-ray the popcorn before it went to Japan. So there's lots of kind of nonsense trade barriers.
And they may go away. Or they
well,
may be asked to
that's
go away.
a harder thing to negotiate away, particularly if they're healthcare related but a lot of them are nonsense.
All right, so we'll see what happens in these next 90 days. Dale, thank you for coming in.
Nice to be with you.
Appreciate it. All right, Chris, it is very warm.